the News Channel 5 network, this is Morning Line with Nick Barris.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Line. Hopefully everyone out there had a great Father's Day weekend. I'm Matthew Torres filling in for Nick Barris this morning. Now we are talking about a pretty interesting topic and a pretty open one, might I add, and we are talking about the President Trump's administration and everything that's happening so far. The top headlines just within really the last week, a lot happened regarding this administration. And to talk to us about this is a guest that we've had here before, Professor Tom Schwartz with Vanderbilt University. Yes, University. Yep. He is a political science professor and someone with a plethora of knowledge, to say the least. Are you ready for this?
The Trump administration has been a challenge to all of us who are trying to interpret, but I will do my best.
A challenge in the sense that it really has been a very unorthodox
very much so.
Administration and really approach to things and getting the message out there. Yeah. Really, I think all the way down to Twitter.
Yes.
That's how we know things are a lot.
It has changed a lot of the norms and the style and the manner of presidency in ways that people like myself who've gone up through a sort of traditional way of studying presidents have found it a little unusual.
Maybe a little bit more exciting, to say the least.
Exciting and interesting, yes.
Well, Professor Schwartz, let's begin. And of course, for those who do have questions, the number is on your screen, 615-737+. And I know we're expecting some pretty interesting calls as well. So we want to hear from you, anything that he can answer. Again, very knowledgeable and someone who studied, obviously, political science and the political field for quite some time. But let's begin with, obviously, the top headline since late last week, over the weekend, and that is the zero tolerance policy. There's been now backlash from both parties. Mm-hmm. What do you make of this? Just looking as to what happened. I want to have some follow-up questions.
Well, most of the backlash right now is still focused on people, many moderate Republicans and Democrats, who have always had reservations about the president's hard line on immigration. Now there are some also, it's also clear that even among some immigration hardliners within the administration, there's some uncertainty, particularly about the optics of separating families and the ways in which this is being presented. The president himself has, of course, said he doesn't want to do it, but he's blamed the Democrats, in a way, tried to shift responsibility. The truth is, of course, that this is a policy change. The administration has decided on a zero tolerance policy for people undocumented trying to cross the border and either claiming asylum or trying to get across into the United States. This has led to, according to analysis, about 2,000 children now have been separated. This is a change in policy. It may be a bargaining tool by the administration to try to accelerate the negotiation of some type of immigration bill. But this is something we'll have to wait and see as how this develops. But there's been a strong backlash.
Strong backlash. And how did this originate? Because there are reports that this actually stemmed even before President Trump's administration, some type of policy to where families are separated. Can you clear up something on that?
Well, part of the problem has been, well, to get more deeply rooted, there's of course intense disorder in many Central American countries, gang violence, all sorts of violence toward people. Many of these people in the detention centers are not from Mexico. They're from Central American countries where there's very little political stability and a great deal of violence, and some of them are fleeing that. There's also simply the draw of trying to come to the United States for more economic opportunity. Our economy is booming. Whenever our economy has boomed, it's tended to be a draw for immigrants, even with the change in the administration and the more hostile rhetoric. So those things are at work. During the Obama administration, Obama certainly also tried to control aspects of the border, but he was unwilling. The administration actually was not willing to separate families, and this did not generally go on in the Obama administration for undocumented people coming to the border. The administration, Jeff Sessions, in April decided to reverse the policy and declare zero tolerance. and in a way try to prevent the idea spreading within Central America that if you come to the border with children, you can get into the United States. That's part of it, too, is a way of trying to act as a deterrent to illegal immigration.
And this is not law. This is just
policy. This is policy, and it could be changed, but it's policy with a design to change the law. That's what gets a little confusing and why people can argue it on both sides in some ways. But the idea of the policy is to change the law as it is, to toughen the immigration standards and requirements, to toughen requirements for asylum, to perhaps even change, to build the wall, to get the funding for the wall that the president wants in the congressional legislation. So it is part of a political bargaining process, but it has horrible human consequences.
And as of early this morning, we had First Lady Laura Bush also speaking out, calling this policy cruel and immoral. Also, you know, we are a CBS affiliate. CBS this morning has also been in McAllen, Texas, just to really delve into issues there. Speaking with actually someone with the border facility. Yeah, no, this is the Laura Bush. How big of a deal?
Well, what was interesting about Laura Bush's op-ed is her op-ed, Kellyanne Conway was on CNN yesterday saying that that she disapproved of the policy, but she hoped, of course, that the Congress would deal with it. But she criticized the media for comparing this to concentration camps and other things. And here's Laura Bush comparing it to the Japanese internment camps of World War II. So it's going to keep the issue in a high profile. Obviously, the Bushes have not had a terribly warm relationship with President Trump, so it's not terribly surprising that Laura Bush would weigh in. But she also weighed in at the same time as Melania Trump, who weighed in on a more bipartisan type of way, but also said she didn't like the idea of seeing children separated. So it's clearly going to keep the issue in the news and put, I think, increase the pressure for some type of action, either by the president or some action in Congress.
And it's interesting that they are in McAllen this morning. I have been to just my previous market in Texas. I've covered the undocumented immigration crisis there 4 years ago, and just to see what's happening there. Regardless, there's been an ongoing issue with unaccompanied minors crossing the border for quite some time. It really exacerbated 4 years ago, and now it's back into the spotlight.
It's back into the spotlight because of this sort of sense that it could be a way, and it also has to do, of course, with the conditions in Central America that have created this drive towards sending undocumented or sending children northward in order to escape violence and the conditions that exist in those countries. I mean, that in one way, one possible measure that could be done would be some aspects of trying to help some of these countries manage their own populations as well.
Which can be somewhat of an unpopular opinion among a lot of people, because essentially illegal immigration is against the law. And so what do you think when people argue that this is just a way to deter that? And this morning, even who they interviewed with the Border Patrol said they were able to stop someone from the MS-13 coming through the border. Essentially, they say they're really just trying to separate those dangerous criminals and those who are not.
Well, this is one of the complications of the immigration issue, is that it can be emotional on both sides. MS-13 is the issue that Republicans want to talk about, gang violence coming north. This view, and it's legitimate and has to be heard. And President Trump, one of the reasons he's president is because he raised this issue. So it obviously concerns lots of people. On the other hand, you know, there are many Americans who are just very, very uncomfortable with this idea of separating families. Separating children as young as 10 years old from their mothers and fathers. So this is something, in a way, the one good that could come out of this would be some type of resolution or some type of new policy on immigration that could reach some type of bipartisan consensus.
Right, I think that bipartisan approach hearing from both sides, I think, can be even somewhat of a breath of fresh air with this administration. Let's go now to the lines. I know we have a caller. Hey, Joe, good morning. Thanks for calling. What is your question?
I'd like to ask the professor.
Yes, sir.
How would he rate President Trump on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being terrible and 10 being great. And also, on the immigration issue, we don't seem to have any problem with letting Russians, Chinese, and other countries come into the United States. So, you know, it's a little bit confusing to me why this is such a big issue, and I don't know where I would rate the wall as being more important than human beings or not.
Right. All right, Joe, good. Thank you for calling. I mean, he compared other people coming to the country and maybe even Mexicans. I think the line of that we are the bordering country to Mexico.
Yes, I think that, you know, it's obvious. No one's although I guess recently the governor of Wisconsin actually brought this up, but no one's really talking about building a wall in the north. This really has to do with the fact that the United States borders on populous areas that are substantially poorer, and their economy is substantially more ungoverned, substantially more lawless, and the result is that you're going to have people wanting to come to the United States for economic opportunity, for security, for opportunity for their children, all of those things. And we've long had a kind of a two-sided or point of view. On the one hand, wanting to restrict and prevent huge immigration waves. On the other hand, being willing to tolerate it, you know, particularly for agricultural purposes and interests. Lots of businesses benefit from illegal immigration. Lots of opportunities. We haven't really implemented, for example, the e-hire type of restrictions that would prevent businesses from hiring undocumented immigrants. So we've had a kind of two-sided view of immigration that's not completely, on the one hand, talking about enforcing the law, and on the other hand, being willing to wink and allow opportunities on our business and other interests to take advantage of illegal immigrants.
Again, it's a polarizing topic, but also a perfect opportunity for Congress members to really
do something.
To really hone in and focus. I think that's what we're now waiting for. Something more specific, something more detailed, and something of a decision that can actually be across the board. So we will continue to discuss this topic as soon as we come after the break. You're watching Morning Line.